What's up, guys? My name is Witty, and today we are finally getting back into the Let's Build type of videos. Now, I haven't even been on my single player world in about a week, even though we just did it on the Dopefish servers. It's a little weird, in my opinion, to just walk through a house and explain how to build it, so instead, we're going to do it from the ground up, and you guys will get to build along with me if that's something you want to do. Now, before we jump into this video, I do have to let you guys know that this video is sponsored by CMH PALWORLD once again. Check this little clip out. Now, this build is definitely a good one in my opinion. It is very fun. If you've seen any of the Dopefish server videos, it is the triple A-frame type build, the main house that Ranch and I are living in currently. So we're going to be replicating that here, and hopefully you guys can follow along pretty easily and you like the look of it. So we're actually going to start off with a 3 by, I want to say it's 6, and we're going to be utilizing all of this space, which is the best part about this. We are going to, next up, do the walls. You are welcome to replace any wall with a window, of course, if you are a fan of windows everywhere. I personally didn't do it in this build just because I planned on doing a lot of work on the interior, and we did do a ton of work on the interior, so no point in having all of that. Now, we are going to place windows on the outer two. The door and the second window, it's kind of up to you which side they go on, but I personally did it this way. And we're doing this so we can have a little bit of an overhang in the center. So starting out, you should have a shape very similar to this. It's almost like having two mini 3x2 houses with a smaller 2x2 in the center. Now let's go ahead and do everyone's favorite part, which is of course the roof. The roof is painful almost all the time, but you can thankfully do this pretty easily in this build. Now we're going to build up the roof on this side, and we're going to do the same on this side. Thankfully, because of the way the walls are lined up, this is, again, pretty easy to do. So, no complaints from me. Hopefully, you guys are able to do it just as smoothly. Once all 6 of these are placed down, you are able to remove the extra pieces. And we're simply going to repeat this exact process on the other 2 compartments. Now, the only place this really becomes an issue is here in the center. And we can simply place down a wall to fix that problem. Just on each side here. We will be removing them after, of course, but it does allow you to just very easily place the roof. And now these 3 can be removed, as well as these 3, and even this wall. And that is how our triple A-frame setup is going to look. You're going to have a little front porch here, and the other sides are going to be like we talked about, 3x2. Now we are, of course, going to fill in all of our triangular walls. Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. And once that is finished, you can get an idea of what this house is actually going to look like when it is completed. We are going to be doing a lot of work on the interior. The exterior decorating is really up to you. I personally would recommend having some antique braided baskets and creating kind of a porch right here. I am very roughly placing all of this stuff because at the end of the day, it is completely up to you how you do it. Now we are going to want to have some stairs that lead up to our porch area, and then we can just instantly build all of these. Now, this will be kind of what your front porch area looks like. So for me, I'm going to throw down a red rug right here. I didn't actually do this on the Dopefish server, but I wish that I had, so we will do it here. And then we are going to plop down a dining table of some kind. I think we'll just go with a round table. There we go. Perfect. Now, we do need to, of course, use our plants. We're going to want quite a few of them anyways, so placing down a lot of them is never a bad thing. The more, the better, in my opinion. So you end up with something like this. Now, I would recommend personally using ivy, and as you guys have seen in most of my builds, I do throw ivy around pretty haphazardly. It's all over the place in my builds. I ended up going for something like this in the Dopefish server as well, so that is what I would personally recommend doing, but it is entirely up to you. I also enjoy having a little rug in front of the door, so we will have one there. I don't really love how it looks beside this, but let that be your own personal. Now, I do the exact same thing on the inside, so we'll go ahead and place this down there as well. And now is where the fun part begins. So I started on this side, and I really like the idea of using the wooden counters here as a kitchen. So we are going to replicate that process in this build as well. I need to line this up as best as possible. I think we're right on the money there. We are indeed on both sides, so perfect. And I didn't get to do this in the other build, but I'm going to do it here. We want to have a rug down first. Less restrictive building, I can add this after the fact. You're probably going to have to add it before you put down the actual counters, but we'll go ahead and place that down there. We will end up wanting a table to sit somewhere right around here. We will use our lovely wooden wall shelf, and it will sit somewhere in the center here. I ended up using some wooden decorative wall shelves on this side. And this is generally speaking what your kitchen is going to look like. Now, there are extra details that I add in, such as the antique braided basket functioning as a trash can right here. I even went for having a wooden bench on this side to kind of seat people at the bar of sorts. And the rest is really just decorations. It really is. And that makes this all personal preference. I really love the look of the flower pots, so I do place those quite often all over the place. You are free to decorate as you see fit, but this is generally what our kitchen will look like. Next up, we're going to place a giant rug like this, and this is going to function as kind of the dining room. Now, for the dining room, we're going to use a different table, which is going to be the square one here. I would recommend putting the side with the 2 plates towards the more open area of the house, so you don't have as much clutter from the chairs. And you can use whatever chairs you want. I often use the antique wooden chairs. This time we're actually going to use the green ones because why not? I think it'll be cool. And don't place these all perfectly straight. It makes it look like it's not real at all. So I often end up curving some of them, making them look interesting. Maybe even placing one a bit sideways like someone had gotten up from their chair. You never know. Now that that's been placed down, we can actually start to decorate the area. I do think that the kitchen gets a lot of depth out of adding ivy above it as well. Now, again, I add ivy in almost every build and I overdo it. You're going to need thousands of fiber following my build videos, but I genuinely think it improves the look of the build so much, and that is why we use so much of it. Now, I do believe I ended up throwing a wall clock down right here because when you're cooking, of course, you need to know what time it is. So we have that there. And as far as this area goes, it is in fact a kitchen. So we do end up adding ourselves 2 little wine shelves, or wine cabinets, I guess you'd say. They're going to be placed a little strangely because I have to hop on top of the table, but that's okay. I just want them as close as possible. So we kind of have a dual wine cabinet, and they're pretty centered, not bad. I did have the actual wooden barrel shelf in the Dopefish version. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to look clean in this, but we're going to try it, of course. And if it doesn't, then we will adjust accordingly. I do think that still looks good, actually, so we'll go ahead and throw down an extra barrel right here, perhaps 2 of them, and I think that'll actually do it for that corner. I am going to throw down some more ivy and continue that path along the top here, and that essentially knocks out the kitchen and the dining room. Now, We can, of course, add small decorations here and there to touch things up a bit, such as more flowers, even mirrors, or whatever else you may want to add. And more importantly, I almost forgot, something else that I did in the Dopefish server that is entirely optional is to add a roof like this. Now, it does cover up a lot of the ivy, so you would have to replace that if you ended up using this style, so to speak. You end up replacing the ivy like this, and it makes things look a little bit cleaner. But I like having this little roof up here. It's inaccessible, but we end up using it as kind of storage. So we end up with something like this, where you just have a bunch of crates, some barrels, maybe some more braided baskets, and some plants, and you end up having a little storage area. Now, the best thing about this, in my opinion, is that you can actually add something along the lines of a lamp up here, and you can light not only the inside of the space, but the outside as well. And I will show you what that looks like. And you are going to need a power generator for this, but assuming your base has one, as you can see, this illuminates the entirety of the kitchen. It illuminates a little bit on the front of the house as well, and it just all around looks incredible. You have a really nice looking busy kitchen and dining room, and we can now move on to the living room, which is actually just going to be this area right here. Now, I am going to use the exact same rug, which maybe is frowned upon, but I don't care. I think it looks great, and we're going to do it anyways. Now, we don't have a way to really set up the old TV, at least not a way that looks good in my opinion. So we are going to actually take advantage of one of the cabinets, and that is going to be the long antique cabinet here that you see. We're going to place this somewhere center-ish for the rug. Once it is down, of course, that is when we can really have some fun. So we have a grandfather clock. We have our little antique long dresser. We have a mirror, if you're into that kind of thing. We are, of course, going to include the ivy. It is going to span across just like normal. That is not going to change. And you're more than welcome to include some of the small wall ivy if you want to bring it down like this. I don't always do it, but it does look great if done properly. It is entirely up to you, of course. This is your build after all. Now, I do think that sometimes the big wall ivy is going to look good as well, and throw a couple small ones inside of it. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to add extra texture, and that's something that you kind of have to experiment with yourself too. One thing I did do is add a couch and a chair with an ottoman, and it is going to look something like this. And then we can throw down a table for the living room. I usually just use an antique table like this. Throwing it somewhere in the center generally does a good job. Now for this back end here, just so we don't have a completely empty area, we do need to make sure we leave enough room to walk. So we don't want to put something too crazy here. Especially because we have actually taken up a little more room in this version of the build than I did in the Dopefish one. So I do have to be very careful with what I put there, but I think we're just going to put an antique cabinet that has some books right behind the door, so it shouldn't really be that much of an issue. We're going to line it up a little bit and get it to the wall just like this, and it's going to look something like that. I did end up actually adding these guys as well. Just, maybe you have a kid or something. We are, however, going to move into the final part of the house, and there are a lot of options here, but what we ended up doing is actually using this side for functionality. This is our actual storage side. So what I would recommend you end up doing, if you are using the high quality workbench, if you have that unlocked, or just the regular workbench, whatever stage of the game you're on, I would recommend placing that here. I would recommend placing your PAL gear workbench here. It's like this. And I would perhaps even recommend placing your medicine workbench in the corner here, just so you have all of the necessities in arm's reach. And from there, we place storage. That is our main goal for this side. I am going to also place down a carpet just like this. These are all accessible and far enough apart that they shouldn't really interact with each other, even though it may look like they will. Now, the way that I personally do storage requires you to have less restrictive building because of the way I place signs. You do not have to do this. You're able to do it without, but it isn't as close to the wall, and it's not as good looking in my opinion. And that is, of course, using the signs as well as the metal chests, lining them up as best as possible and placing both down just like this. You will repeat this process along the wall. And as you can see, you can change the text. We will call this one schematics. And once I've typed in the word or the one line that I want this to be titled, I'll hit enter one time just to raise the text a little bit and do something like this. And now you have chests with signs that are clearly labeled. And if you do this properly, if you run all the way into the chest, you won't be able to change the text. It'll be just far enough away. So you will always be opening the chest, and you'll never accidentally open this menu and have to hit escape and back up, and it's a whole process. I would honestly leave this part as the messy part, you know? I would have my chests just kind of scattered about, and I wouldn't really think too hard about it. It's not that big of a deal. The storage is kind of something that can be a little messy. As long as you have them sorted properly, it's not a big deal. Now, one other thing that I did do recently is this fun little thing. So we ended up adding a wall in here and having a staircase that leads up to this little compartment, so to speak. Now, if you do decide to build this, you are going to have to remove one of your chests, but doing something like this and having a staircase up, and you have a couple of extra chests up here, perhaps your valuables, for example, something like this, you can easily set this up to look really nice. And again, it can be for valuables or anything of that nature. I do need to jump to place down the rug a little bit. There we go. And we got her down, and it's just something like that. Nice and simple, nice and easy. But you have multiple layers to your storage now, and it doesn't clutter the place up too badly. You can still access everything. I don't know how I feel about the stairs going straight through the rug, but, you know, it is what it is. Perhaps we just go like this. We place a smaller rug down, such as this one. And then underneath the stairs, maybe we place this big red one. And now we have rugs in all the right places and decorations everywhere. We have a finished building on the interior, and the exterior really is all about personal preference. I really love the idea and the look of placing ivy at the base of these windows, just like this, and then including one of them right under the window. And I will also throw in a wooden decorative wall shelf. Try to center it as best as possible, and throw that right underneath the window as well. And I just think this looks really nice, personally. One of the other things that I would recommend doing is adding simply farms. If you like your farms to surround your house, I think it adds a really nice touch. And yeah, you can simply add some farms around the front. It adds some depth to the build. Ignore the chest if possible. I think it looks incredible. Coming over to the other side, you can do something very similar. Perhaps you want to have some ivy run along the top like this. It's kind of just about tossing stuff around here and there and figuring out what looks good. Now, we do want to have a bit of a pathway walking up into this. So now we have a little pathway walking up to the house. Now, we didn't decorate everything, but this is the most recent build that I have come up with. I'm still not using stone, and I know a couple people have told me that I probably should. I am playing on a dedicated server that actually has raids now, so it might become a problem. It hasn't been in my single player world for obvious reasons. If it becomes one in the dedicated server, we will address it as such, and we will start experimenting with stone. I do want to mess with it anyways, so it'll be a good thing to get into. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Let's Build style video, and hopefully it was able to inspire you for your builds. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one, and thank you guys for all of the recent support. We are well on our way to 1,000 subscribers, which is, of course, our goal by the end of this month. So let's see if we can't get there. Appreciate all of you guys. Peace.